Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the In All Things podcast.
Yep.
I'm joined today by Steve and Jared.
Yep.
I'm Josiah, and today we are going to talk about marriage.
Why? Don't know anything about it.
Yeah, couldn't tell you one way or another. Believe it or not, we are all married. So,
Yes. As far as you know.
as far as I know,
I've never asked for proof
of
from
marriage.
either one of you. No.
That's true. I could give you a certificate. We have a few of them. And
A few of them?
Yeah, we have like three
nice.
copies because
Okay.
legal documents
That's
and stuff.
good. Anyway,
You
Anyway.
need them for something?
let's not derail this. Okay, stay on track here.
Anyway, marriage, guys.
Okay.
So when I think about podcasts about marriage, I think a lot of, here's what we do and it works for us. Here's what we do, it works for us. I think a lot of marriage counseling is finding solutions that are tried and true by other couples and other relationships. But it seems like there's a lot of, there's no one real right way to do it. Everybody's kind of different, and that's okay. But I thought it would be interesting to see what those things are in a healthy marriage that really every marriage should have.
Okay.
So not the, here's how we solved this. You could solve it a different way. More this should be in your marriage, and if it's not, it's something that you should probably take a look at.
Okay.
Type of deal. So, Jared, I know you put in the most amount of research before doing this podcast. Tell me, what do you think those things are?
Oh, man. Here we go.
Just preface this by saying he is now trained in premarital counseling.
That's what I'm saying.
and he does
But-
that now. How many couples are you? You have one you've completed and like three more.
Yeah,
and
3 current.
so he has the most knowledge about this.
I was going to say,
that.
well, and you've done counseling before.
yeah,
Of course.
yeah.
I have done one round of premarital counseling before, and they're still married,
Okay.
and that's cool.
Oh,
Well,
and how many years
batting
have you been
1,000.
married?
I've been married 5,
And you got
13.
and you've got
34.
34. Sherry, if it's not the right number,
It's on the 90. We got married on the 90, so it was easy to remember. That's
That's how I remember how old I am.
yeah. You were born on the year I was married.
Yeah.
Oh,
look
cool.
at that.
So I could be your dad.
Well,
Well,
if you want to be, we can make that happen, I guess.
You're gonna adopt Jared this late in life. I like it.
I'm good. I got enough.
Anyway,
Anyway,
What's the question again?
what are some things that should be present in any healthy marriage? And I want to eventually get to a spot where we're not just calling out vague stuff like, oh, there should be love and trust and communication, because that's kind of what you always hear. But if we're looking to be practical help for people who are married, what, if you were looking from the outside in on a marriage, would you say every marriage should have this?
I think you got to look at like why you are attracted to each other in the first place. So like you got to go all the way back to, when you first met, when you're dating, what made you want to get into a companionship. But I think a lot of it has to do with obviously kind of the theological nature of marriage, which is just having a life partner. But that all boils down to, I think, serving one another. And so we talk about, how do you submit to your spouse, or how does your spouse submit to you? But marriage should just be essentially a challenge to outserve each other. And I think that is a really big struggle and challenge for everybody.
Yeah.
No matter how long you've been married, but I think that's not something that comes naturally, like in marriage. I think it's something that everybody has to work at. So, like for example, last night when we got home from our small group, Lisa Kay was struggling with the headache, and she didn't even really say anything. She's just like, my head's throbbing, and we had to get home and get all the kids in bed quick because they had standardized testing this week today. So we were like, all right, they're gonna get a good night's sleep. So as soon as we got home, like she went and laid down, didn't say anything. She didn't say, hey, go get the kids to bed. I just recognized that she needed that time and jumped into action and kind of took all of that into my own hands. I think that that's just something that you have to grow at. Like, and there are times where I absolutely do not pick up on those signals, and I fail to serve her in those ways. But I think that that's one of the biggest things that selfishness in marriage is like just
the killer.
You're gonna fail super quickly. So
that's good. I mean, I wouldn't have started there, but that's a great place to start, serving
each other.
Yeah, and I mean, and as men, we're usually pretty good, like talking about how we do a good job of it, and seeing our how good we are at it. Like I was thinking, very similar. As soon as you start talking about, Sherry's had a really bad knee lately, like it's painful, and so I've just done little things like preventing her having to go up and down the stairs more than necessary. Let me go get that, or let me do that walking for whatever it is to try to prevent that. And that's like a little subtle thing she didn't ask for, but I think that's what you pick up on. And you go back to, you said what you fell in love, what you were like then, what was it attracted to you, and how did it go so well early on that you got yourself married, is like the companionship and what made it fun to be with that person. Why did you want to be with them so much more than everybody else?
Yeah.
What was it? And keep doing those things. And that's my favorite things about our marriage is when we laugh together and when we're just doing something that we both enjoy and we're talking and laughing and being like, wow, I can't believe that's happening, and like sharing stories. And it's just like, that is what makes it great. Somebody to do life with.
100%. Yeah, I think early in our marriage, Mallory in particular struggled with that because she came from such a list and tit for tat kind of home life that when my parents were really good at out serving each other. Still are. They're not dead. They're alive. You may be watching right now. What's up, Mom and Dad? Yeah. But she did not come from that. So when I went into that mentality of like, oh, I'm just going to serve you, I'm just going to do these things, she was keeping a track record in her head mentally and being like, and now I owe him X, Y, and Z, and I need to do this. And if I ever had a busy week and wasn't doing, as much as I was doing the previous week, she felt like she was slighted. And so that was kind of a big deal early in our marriage that we had to figure out was like, how do we get this checklist, this balancing mentality out of here and just say, no, like whatever it takes, I'm going to pull a little harder when I can pull harder, and you're going to pull a little harder when you can pull harder. And that's why it's a partnership. So yeah, I agree. Serving each other should be there. I think also across the board, and I think, Steve, you can probably weigh in this because you've done not just premarital counseling, but marriage counseling, is probably intimacy has to be there if you're going to be married.
What do you mean by intimacy?
Like,
no, I mean, are you defining that only in the physical sense of it, or emotional intimacy, like sharing everything, or
I would say both.
Okay.
I mean, certainly both.
Yeah.
I think the physical is an easy one to measure, especially if you're a guy. But the emotional one has to be a component.
Yeah, I've had friends that I've counseled over the years, and they've told me some sad stories about how their wife has withdrawn from them in a physical sense and withheld intimacy, if we're going to not use the S word.
Sex, guys.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
What's that?
What's that?
Because
says the guy with three
kids. I was floored when I've heard like, yeah, maybe a couple times a year.
That's crazy.
I'm like, what? How are you even? I mean, that's such a dangerous thing to do or game to play or whatever that is.
Yeah,
there's and of course I'm not a therapist in that area, but there could be a lot of reasons behind
Definitely,
that.
yeah.
But why is that not happening? And that's so because that makes the marriage, that makes it so much better, right?
100%.
Let's just be honest about that. Like, that was designed by God to create that level of emotional intimacy and happiness in our lives. And when that part of your life's going good, your relationship feels a lot better.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, I've seen it even in friends' marriages, is like when that part goes, all of a sudden fights start to break out a lot more over stupid stuff. And it's
when that part of your life is fulfilled, some of the small fights just disappear. They don't seem so important.
It's crazy.
It's it works that way a little bit. And, but when that does disappear and it becomes less frequent or just withheld as like a punishment, then, especially a man will start looking for it other places. And that's very, I mean, I've seen it.
Dangerous, yeah.
Seen so many couples break up because of that. Now, I'm not saying, there's also the other side of it. Like, if she's withholding from him, is it because of some other areas of his life that is causing, he's not treating her the right way? There's all different layers to this. And I think it's good to preface this, say, I am not a marriage counselor. I will meet with people, but I will refer people that have deeper problems, because,
100%.
There's so many layers to that often, but that is such a, you can't not talk about that. That is so important.
Right. Yeah, no, we're not experts. We're just three dudes.
I think everybody knows that.
Yeah,
but,
three dudes in happy marriages sharing our opinions.
Yes.
Jared, thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, but just like you said, guys will go looking for that in other places. But, the ladies' side, they'll go looking for the emotional.
Which ends up leading to that.
Right.
Right.
So it's, there's.
It's both and.
That's why, marriage is what it is, and why we believe it was so, delicately orchestrated to be between a man and a woman, just because those needs, they go together so perfectly, and each individual has the ability to satisfy those needs. You said it's so easy to slip up and fall, especially as a guy, because we see things at face value, like, all the time. That's just who we are. We resist digging into the emotional baggage that our spouse may or may not need to talk about at the end of a long day. And if anybody knows me, they know that I'm like the worst at internalizing every thought. And, and that's a challenge. That'll be a lifelong challenge for me, is being
vocal.
Yeah, being willing to be the one to be like, hey, let's talk about this. I could probably tell you that, like, maybe on one hand, the amount of times that I've gone home and said, hey, we need to talk about this, because this is not something that I do.
There's been times when Sherry's met with your wife and she's like, I'm sure Jared told you about something going on at the church.
Oh my God.
And she's like, no, he's never. She's like, how could he not tell her that?
I've had it since I've been here. I've had like 5 or 6 interactions with Lisa Kay like that, where on Sunday morning we're in the green room. I'm like, oh, the thing. And she's like, couldn't tell you. Like, oh, okay, well.
See, the problem is like because there's so much that happens around here during the day, I feel like if in order for her to know everything,
you'd have to tell her
I
everything.
have to go home and sit down and spend 6 hours telling her this is everything that happened today at church. It's a rapidly evolving process and ministry, and here's all the things that might happen tomorrow that you should like. Yeah, it's just it's exhausting.
Yeah, I remember. Do you guys remember?
I am at fault. I will say I'm at fault. I'm not saying.
Hopefully, we all have our admissions by the time this is over. A couple, 5 years ago maybe, Ed Young Jr. at Fellowship Church in Dallas, Texas. He did a series on marriage, and they did like a 30-day sex challenge or something like that. They said
do it every day.
Yeah,
for 30
every
days?
day for 30 days,
cool.
And it'll like revolutionize your marriage.
Okay,
I think that's a little something, isn't it? I never heard the results.
Even after Mexican night.
Even after Mexican night.
That's rough.
Wow.
Just want to like go hibernate after 7 baskets of chips and salsa.
All right.
You brought it up.
I did.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Do it a lot. Do it often.
Josiah said so.
I said so. Yeah. Okay. I bring this up only because we talked about it in our last podcast. We talked a little bit about comparisons when we were talking about blessings. Do you think that it is good, bad, or neutral to compare your marriage to others? And when could it be helpful? When could it not be helpful?
I think it could be good, bad, or neutral, depending on what you're comparing.
On how you're doing it?
Yeah. I think we should all have what I would call mentor couples or model marriages that we look at. People that we know, not just like, they're out there on the screen on TV, or like they're a celebrity couple. No. People that you can actually speak to, and they can speak into your marriage. You can ask them questions. I mean, it's good for your spouse to have somebody they look up to as a wife, as an example, and for you to look up to as a man, as a husband. You like the way that in their marriage has been solid for a long time, so you can say, okay, I look to them. I can get advice from them. They'll be honest with me. They're not going to just like take my side. They're going to be like, you're being a jerk.
Sure.
Yeah, that type of thing. I think it's incredibly helpful. I mean, I'm thankful that my parents have been married 55 years, and their marriage isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. And,
Sure.
Yeah, and it's pretty solid, and I can get a lot of feedback or advice from them. So, yeah.
Well, what about you?
I don't know. I would say I agree with that. I would say generally it's a bad idea
To compare?
Yeah, I mean, other than those that, like you said, you're
Our
looking
role
up
models,
to.
sure.
Like my parents have been married for forever, so like of course, like I'm gonna want to be that way as well. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna want to chase after that. But as far as like, I think people in your peer group, I think that could be a dangerous comparison scenario.
Sure.
How?
Just
How's it
because
You don't know
there's-
the whole story.
You don't know what you don't really know what's going on in every marriage, and a lot of marriages you only see what's going on at the surface. But then how's it going to make your spouse feel if you say, "Oh, I wish you were
Like
that way,"
this. Yeah.
and
Right.
that person is somebody who's your age and your peer group? I think it can be dangerous. I mean, sure, there are things that you can strive to do that other couples do, but I would say, more so. I'm like, definitely those that have gone before us and had long, successful, lifelong marriages. Those are the ones that are definitely valuable to emulate, however we can.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like anything where you can take the good and leave the bad when it comes to looking at other people's marriages, especially if they've been married for forever. I mean, I knew a couple when I was young, and the husband, they'd been married for like 50 years or whatever. The husband had never seen the wife without makeup. She would get up before he woke up, put on a full face of makeup, and then wake him up. And it worked for them. That's great. I'm probably not going to do that. I think that would be an absolute... just a weird thing to do. But what I do think is good for is if you or your spouse feel like you need more help, but you don't know what that looks like, looking at other people's marriages and going, oh, well, do you know so-and-so? She does this, and in return, he does this. And that would be really helpful if you could do that. It's a good place, I think, sometimes to find ideas. But if you're taking it as a whole marriage and you're going... how can I just trade my marriage for what they seemingly have? I think it's terrible and dangerous.
Yeah. And every marriage, I mean, definitely every marriage is different just because the people in it are different, and everybody's needs are different. And the DNA and the makeup of every marriage is wildly different,
Which
and inconsistent.
shows the value of the premarital counseling, because it is to bring up those things and expose them.
Yeah.
So, because when you're getting married, you think everything's just bliss, and it's not. And you'll find out as that process does and uncovers things that need to be discussed. Doesn't mean that you're not a good match. It just means this is going to be a problem in your marriage if you don't talk about it.
100%.
You might as well talk about it before and resolve some things about the way you're going to go about it and approach life together. So, but I do think it's weird because I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but I've had people in my life that I thought, and I looked at their marriages were absolutely amazing, perfect Christian people, and all of a sudden they're split up. I'm like, what just happened? Or she cheated, or I'm like, no way. If anybody cheated, it would have been him. But just knowing their personalities, and you're just like floored by that. So, like you guys are saying, not every marriage is what it looks like on the surface.
You don't know what's actually going on.
So I think when you get advice from other people, you have to weed through it and say, does this work for us? And be open about that. Yeah.
Did you guys? We didn't have that struggle as much, but I noticed with in my friend group and people that I know, early in their marriages, they struggled with that comparison a lot. Where it was like, I just want us to be like my mom and dad, and the guys or the girl, whoever, is like, but I'm nothing like your mom or dad, right?
Right.
I wonder. We didn't struggle with it, so it wasn't like, I don't know when that goes away. But if you guys did, how long do you think it took, or what did it take before you were like, actually, no, we're not our parents, and that's okay. We can take the good from our parents and learn from it, but we're going to forge something new.
I've seen it, but I don't think we really
Didn't struggle
struggle with
with it.
that too much. I mean, like, there were some things that my mom was different at in certain ways than Sherry is, and then there's certain things she's better at, different at than my mom is, and so I think it would be one of the worst things you could say early on in your marriage. It'd be like, why can't you do what my mom did? Like,
oh my gosh,
that'd be not good, you know.
Be real rough.
Yeah, I did, have that. We were in our first year, and she made spaghetti, and she didn't put meat in the sauce. I was like,
Ooh, that's rough.
That is rough,
I was like,
dude.
what is this? She's like, well, we never had meat in ours. I said, we always had meat.
It's like,
It's not spaghetti without meat.
Either
I gotta be
ground
honest,
beef or meatballs that has
something.
She's like, well, we didn't have as much money as you. I'm like,
Come on, Sherry.
okay, come on now. I say, well, I'm going to take a second job so we can afford meat in our spaghetti. So that was always one of our
Got
jokes.
standards
I heard her
of living.
feelings. I did. I heard her feelings by the
really?
way I said it. And,
yeah.
It's just my mom always. It's
That's
like,
a classic.
duh.
That's
Yeah.
a classic
Yeah,
fight.
as a
not what you said, it's how you
20-year-old
said it.
wife of you're learning what it means to be a wife, and she wanted to please me, and she was upset that I said it, but she felt bad that she didn't know that, and that was what she was supposed to do. So it didn't matter. But now I'm even like, we don't have to have meat. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's
Yikes.
Steve's
healthy.
going vegetarian, dude.
No, I'm not.
Not about
Hardly.
that life right there.
Not about that.
The worst now is she tried. And I know you're listening, and I love you, but the gluten-free noodles.
They're not the same.
They're horrible.
They're not even the
I'm
close.
sorry. They're just terrible. She knows. She makes them for me and real noodles for Nick and I, and makes herself some other healthy noodles when we have spaghetti.
That's good for her.
I mean, she's awesome.
I love that
about
for her.
I love that
I
for her
love that
too.
for her.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
that and cauliflower crust on pizza is just not even close to the same thing.
No.
It's not. It's not great.
If you burn it, it tastes the same.
As if you burned normal pizza, I guess.
I would add, I think like for us, we got married, and from the onset of our marriage, we lived 5-6 plus hours away from family. So like it was easy for us to say, we're going to go start our own thing and have our own identity. And plus we were the first people like in either friend group to get married, because we got married so young. So there was no comparison. But I think it's healthy for couples to find independence of their parents as soon as they possibly can. I mean, that's the whole point, right, of marriage, is starting your own family and becoming one together away from, and starting your own traditions, whether or not that means having spaghetti without meat sauce.
Sure.
But
I like that a lot. We had that discussion this year, actually, was now that Luna's getting old enough to actually kind of know what's going on and stuff, like what traditions are we going to start as our family unit that isn't passed down from our parents and stuff. And I think that's one of the more fun things as parents that you can do, is start your own stuff and be like, this is what we do on Fridays or whatever it is, right? Taco night for you is your guys' tradition.
That's right.
That's right.
Never forget. Friday night, 5 p.m., Puerto Vallarta. Meet us there.
So something about marriage that I want to talk about is, I think there comes a point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there comes a point in every marriage where you consciously make the decision, and a switch flips in your mind where you go, yeah, I don't care what happens. Like, this is my unit, this is my person, and we're going to figure things out, right? I think early on in marriages, year one, maybe even year two, you go, yeah, they're my person, of course, right? And then the honeymoon phase kind of wears off, and you settle into it, and you go, yeah, hopefully it'll change. If not, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think every couple that I've seen that's been married for a long time, like that idea of I'll see what happens isn't even a thought in their mind. It's no, like whatever happens, we're going to figure it out.
Right.
Would you agree that happens in every marriage, or do you think that just happens in some marriages when they go through a tough spot or something, or what are your opinions on that?
Wow. I am, for me, I'm going to say for me, I never questioned it. Like, I guess it's because of my parents, and then both sets of my grandparents were married 60 plus years. So I never questioned that this was forever. And so it was never like, I didn't get insecure when we would have a fight, when we had those bumps in the early years, any years. I never, anytime we were in a period where it wasn't as smooth sailing, where it was a little rough for whatever reason was going on, not anytime did I think, oh, this could end. I just didn't crossed my
Sure.
mind. I would say for her, she may have worried more about those things too because her parents got
Right.
divorced.
Comes
And-
from a broken.
and so then I think that impacted her and made her think more like what could happen. But I never, for me personally, it's like I just never could think that could happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is it's just not an option. I always tell couples often in my little devotional I do in a lot of weddings. I usually say like, at this point, from now on, the D word is not on the table. Like it's not like
100%.
it's not a threat. You don't threaten.
It's not a threat, and
No.
it shouldn't even be an option in your mind.
No,
Right?
that's not it. That's not going to be an answer. Never going to work. No.
Jared.
Yeah, I think that living with somebody who is just as imperfect as yourself is always going to be a challenge. But the problem with marriage is you come together on day one most of the time, and I say like a traditional Christian marriage, we're not living together beforehand. Come together and you have like this perfect idealistic image of your spouse who can do no wrong and is perfect, but like we all have these layers that we shed over time, and it reveals the sinfulness and the inconsistencies that we have in the selfishness and the pride that we all have. But you don't see those until you're knee deep into marriage most of the time. A lot of people, will get married after already living together for forever, and they've kind of already, gone through those, and as a result, they don't have a biblical view of marriage, so they divorce super quick.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's all about your expectation going into it. Like I'm a lot like Steve. My parents have always been married, but Lisa Kay came from a broken family, and so she brings a lot of that kind of, not doubt, but a lot of that baggage like she doesn't want those things to creep in. So she's always looking at our marriage and how to protect us. And I've always kind of had this like utopian view because my grandparents were married for forever and my parents were married for forever. And divorce wasn't even really anything that we heard about.
Sure.
So just that idea of it possibly not being a lifelong commitment for those that have gone through premarital counseling and grew up in the church, and it's a foreign idea almost, and it really should be, because marriage is definitely a lifelong covenant, but yeah, I just think the longer you live with somebody, like marriage is it's essentially bringing two imperfect people together and say, hey, figure it out.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't, and they can't. And they can't handle it. And then when their, perfect view of their perfect can do no wrong spouse starts to fall apart, then they start to question.
Yeah, and compromise is one of the keys. I was like, it sounds like a bad word, but it's a great word. It's so important. Like you have to compromise on the ideals. Like I think you have this picture of them. You get married, and the honeymoon phase is awesome, and like they are perfect, and but then, like you said it so well, as layers start to be uncovered, we all have our weaknesses and our imperfections. And when you add the stresses of work and kids and mortgages, all of that, then it brings out different sides of you. And I think that's when you find out, okay, like I'm going to love them, even though there's this part of them sometimes I don't like. And they're thinking the same thing about you. There's these things they don't like about you that aren't cute anymore, like they were when you were 20 and getting married, or whatever age you were. They're not as cute, but they love you anyway. And because there's so much depth into the relationship. Yeah.
So it's weird whenever like people that have been married for so long, 30, 40 years, then suddenly get divorced. You're like,
that is weird. Yeah.
Because everything, you've probably worked through everything at some point.
Right.
But something came along and somebody could not overcome their own sinful desires, or they decided to chase something else. It's incomprehensible. And like I said, I've only been married 13 years, so I don't have all of that experience that somebody who's been married 50 years that does, and all of that, and experiencing the roller coaster of the ups and downs. But yeah, it's a weird, because like you said earlier, it's like a lot of times you just don't see it coming, but it's in there in a lot of couples. It's buried in there, and they're dealing with each other's imperfection. And when you try to do that and you try to perfect it, you're going to fall flat on your face. So relying on the Lord's faithfulness to help you overcome arguments and disagreements and incompatibilities even. because there are people that get into marriage and realize we're not compatible.
We're not compatible at all, actually, but we're in it. So
Yeah.
let's see what we can do, type of deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a few truths that should be in any healthy marriage, which is you should probably have a mentor couple that you're looking at that you can be open and honest with and share with. There should probably be sex.
Probably.
Probably.
I think
There should be sex.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
How much?
How much? Well, my prescription is
Once a day for 30 days.
For 30 days. You heard the challenge, guys. Divorce shouldn't even be a thought in your mind, and you should try to outserve each other. Here's a question: do you guys pray with your spouses? This is an honest podcast. I'll go first.
Okay, go first.
I'll go first. We pray if there's something really crazy going on that we're both that we are worried about or anxious about. We pray about that together out loud. We'll pray for dinner before our meals. But other than that, we'll tell each other like, "Hey, I prayed for you this morning." Sometimes we'll say it to each other. That's about it. What about you guys?
Yeah. Wow.
About the same.
About
as
the
you.
same.
About the
Yeah.
same. Yeah, about the same. In serious crisis mode, and then before meals, and in small group with other people.
Yeah, sure.
But like
At church when we're all closing in prayer, right? Yeah.
Like, no, I mean sometimes we'll hold hands during a meal to prayer, but to be the example that you've heard of other people that do it every night. They lay in bed together and hold hands and have a prayer list together, or in the morning before they go to work. That's fantastic. I mean, I've shared statistics in sermons before about couples that go to church together, the percentage of divorce is lower than if you are in a Bible study together with other couples. It's even lower. But if you pray together every day, it's like 1 out of every 1,100 people get divorced if you pray together, because there's no way to hide stuff from each other if you're that intimate in a spiritual way. So I think you should.
I think there's other quantifiers though in that statistic, right? Because if you're praying every day together, you're probably doing this, and this.
Sure.
And that's just one of the byproducts of your,
But none of us, all three of us would say that you should do that. That's a great thing to do.
Oh,
It's not,
no,
100%.
100%.
Not a command to do, but that is going to only help your marriage. It can't hurt.
100%.
One of the things Sherry and I are thinking, and we're talking, we're going to start doing, is we spend so much time, like our thing that we enjoy doing the most is just watching shows together now, like at night when we're tired after the long day, getting into a series, whether it's Amazon or Netflix or whatever. But we're like, okay, we're going to start doing one night a week where instead of doing that, we're going to watch a study of something together. Not right now media, but not like a Bible study, but like
a TED Talk or something?
Yeah, we're actually like this, what Mitch introduced me to, that Theos University.
Sure.
We're going to do cause we've been talking a lot about different things we're interested in right now. Like there's a lot of different views on eschatology.
Sure.
And let's watch a course together and discuss it. 30-minute lessons. And then, so we're still because I'll start talking to her about conversations we'll have. And she's like, well, I'd like to know more about that. I said, well, let's do this together. And she's like, let's do this together. So we haven't started yet, but I got the app on my Roku now. So there it is. It's really close to happening.
Sweet.
Yeah. Maybe this week we'll
let
watch
us know how it works.
I will, but I mean, because
I think that's cool because ultimately it's a conversation starter, and the goal is to grow together as a unit.
Yeah,
right?
And we'll have other things. We have plenty to talk about in our lives.
Sure,
but this is another thing that I think intellectually stimulating that conversation would be cool. And we've studied things before, talked over things before, but I think this will be a good thing for us.
Nice.
So, anyway, we may end up praying at the end of it. Who knows?
Wow.
I don't know.
Man.
This might be
Be
pushing
wild,
it.
dude. I don't know about that.
So why did you bring that question up?
Just because it's something that you hear a lot when church people talk about marriage is that image of and we fall asleep in each other's arms while praying, and that just brings us to, and I don't know that I know many super down to earth, real Christians who do that. I think a lot of it is just, we pray in crisis mode. We pray before meals or we have some people that we pray for our kids every day, and we'll do that together on the drive to wherever. But very rarely do I actually see in real life that that picture that we've all heard.
Is it
gets
awkward?
painted.
Is that what it is?
Praying together?
No, like here. It works for some people in their relationship, and it doesn't work for some people in their right. Like, like we said earlier, every relationship's not the same. So for some people, they do it. They can do that and have these 30-minute prayer sessions every night with their spouse, and it's not awkward at all,
Not
because
weird.
that's what their relationship is. Yeah, that's
Cool.
what they're about, and that's awesome.
Does that make theirs more spiritual than ours?
Who knows?
Who's grading this, right?
That's,
Okay.
that's
I guess. I just
But like,
no, it's true.
Yeah, like for us, most of us are on the same page in our marriages on this topic. But like that's, I feel like if we added something, if we tried to do that, it would seem forced, and it wouldn't seem natural, and it would almost seem awkward, just because that's not who we are as a couple.
And the question,
like, we both pray, we're both very spiritual. We both pray, we go to church, like we love ministry, we love God.
Right.
But it's like, that's not how we communicate with one another.
Right.
So,
and the other question of it is like, is this a 30-day challenge, or is this something that's going to be sustainable for us? Right. And I think for all the three of us in this room, doing a 30-minute prayer session every night before sleeping would probably not be super sustainable. In terms of, it might be beneficial, it might be good, it might be super weird and awkward, and you kind of get through it and you go, high five, hey, we did that, isn't that great? But I don't think, at least for my marriage, it's not something that like we could just maintain every single night like that. There's just too many variables, too many things happen. There's too many times where we just collapse into bed and it's like, night, and just fall asleep.
Well, I think it's a danger, though, if we're trying to build a Christian marriage and we don't have any spiritual discussion at all.
Agreed.
That's where I think the danger is. Like, if that's the way you connect spiritually by praying together, great.
Good.
But if you can discuss a sermon together, you can discuss what's happening in your kids' lives spiritually, all those things, those are spiritual conversations. 100%. You're having them. And I think you're connecting on that level. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah, I think the key there is just that you are growing together in every level of your life. So you're growing together physically, you're growing together intellectually, emotionally, and then the spiritual would be that. And whether that, like you said, is discussing a sermon or doing a Bible study together or whatever. Right. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to land the plane. We've talked about things that we think should be in every marriage. What is one piece of advice you would give to newlyweds or people who are about to be newlyweds? I know you're doing premarital counseling right now. But maybe something that's not in your counseling book or something from experience. What would you give for advice? Something that you've learned along the way that you're like, actually, I really wish I knew this on day one.
Got a lot.
Sorry,
in my mind.
Kat can overlay the Jeopardy music.
She can scrub through this real quick.
It's like this is too easy, but the whole idea of dating continuing forever, I think that can get lost in the kid phase or the money's tight phase. Whatever that is, for each couple, I think that's so important, because that's whatever you did to have fun before you were married, and when you were first married, continuing to do that, I think is so important. But that's that's not anything that is not common knowledge, right? We've heard that enough. You've heard that before.
Yeah, keep dating.
Yeah, keep dating.
But it is hard. It's keep dating over the life of your marriage for sure. Yeah, but there are phases where it's like,
goodness, it's the easiest it's ever been for us because we don't need childcare to do it anymore. When you guys are at the stage where you have to pay maybe somebody if you don't have family nearby to do it, and it's just like we cannot afford. I remember when we lived, like you said, 5 hours away from family when we were first in ministry and had kids. It was like I on my youth pastor salary afford to pay babysitters. Yeah, with the going rate of babysitters, and go out to dinner.
That was too expensive.
Yeah, I was just like, so we didn't do it as much as we should have then. Survived it, but you find maybe cheaper ways to do it. I mean, we survived it. I mean, it's okay. It's all right. But yeah.
Well, like for us, so with three little kids, and you're going, like, so we go on just going out to dinner, like that's going to take 2 hours probably, the two of you. I mean, that's $40 to $60 in babysitter money right there. So like it's tough, and then
dinner. So you're
dinner,
over bucks now.
And so to say, hey, you got to date your spouse like every week. Well,
do a date
that's
night.
just not it's not really possible for most couples unless you're, raking in tons of money and you have a live-in nanny or,
in which case, good for you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Then do that.
Can I borrow them, please?
Yeah, I was going to say.
But yeah, I think that's, but you can find other ways, after the kids are in bed, watch a movie together. We did that not too long ago. We ordered a bunch of hot wings from a place up the street and watched a movie after the kids were in bed. We had a date night in the basement and watched the new Mission Impossible movie, I think.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
We like
Part
that.
1.
Me and Mel do that. Luna will go down, and sometimes she naps terrible during the day, so she'll go down at like 6 o'clock, and then we have like an actual evening. And I'll be like, I'll make a margarita. Let's watch some, some trashy TV and make fun of it together. That's a good time.
That's date. That is
a date.
That's
right?
a date, right? Yeah.
My thing, I think, would be I read this in a book a while ago, and I'm not really sure how to verbalize it as articulate as it was on paper, but it was more to the effect of your spouse today is not who they are going to be tomorrow, and is not who they are striving to be long term. So figure out who that is that they are striving to be, and love them today for who they're going to be tomorrow, because your image of them today is not who they're going to be, and is not even who they want to be. And so you can't force your love on them to be conditional based upon who they are today, maintaining that same image going forward, because we're all dynamic beings and we change, and our desires and our goals and our wants and dreams, they all change. And I think that has kind of stuck with me. Champion your spouse to who they want to be, not to who you want them to be. So.
Wow, that was much more profound than what I shared.
I
read it well. No, I think that was good, because I think we do sometimes. Man, I look back 34 years ago. I mean, gosh, we thought of each other a lot differently, and she's a lot different person than she was then. So am I. I mean, life changes you, children change you, jobs change you, moving change. It's so much of it. But yeah, thinking about, so often we focus on ourselves and what we're doing, our careers, and not just that, but just everything that they want. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. You got anything?
Well, I have one piggybacking off of yours. The original one that I was gonna say is that you should still flirt with your spouse. Not just like, go on date, spend time together, but like there should be a fun playfulness to marriage.
Yes.
And I think when that goes away, things become very serious for when they do not need to be.
Yes.
And you forget to have fun.
So like if she's going up the stairs in front of you and you don't grab her butt on the way up,
what are you doing?
What are you even doing in your marriage?
What are you doing? Grab it.
I mean, not just that, but like, and I'll say things to her in serious situations where that's not appropriate, but like in church. I mean,
but that's your person.
Oh, come on, Steve.
Before I
this
go
is
to
a
preach,
holy
I'll be
place.
like,
This is a whole,
and
you know what? They're married. It is technically holy.
It's like, she'll like, yeah, I said that.
But
yeah,
that makes it fun.
Yes,
right?
I think that's
makes it fun, and also
inside jokes.
Inside
you don't
jokes.
tell each other what we've shared. I don't tell you.
No.
You guys.
No.
That stuff.
No, but it's important.
Thanks for not doing that.
Yeah, you don't want to know.
Thanks for not doing.
Yeah.
Right before Josiah goes up to lead worship.
A funny story. I can tell this. There was this in my church in Virginia. This made me think of it because my worship leader there and I would always joke about this one couple who had gotten married. It was their second marriage. They got married older, but they were probably contemporary age to me at the time. They were probably in their late 30s, around 40 years old. But they loved a certain song, "God of the City." Do you remember that song?
Oh, wow, yeah.
That was that age, that time.
Okay.
We would do that song. Whenever they would do that song, Josh and I would joke, like, they start like making out during that song. Like they loved that song so much, they would just like be all over each other. Like,
that's their
why
song.
is God of the City making? So I was like, please stop doing that song.
I knew I hated that song for a reason.
I can't bear that. I can't bear it.
No,
so I don't
that.
know. Like worship should not do that for people. But
I think that is not it's a weird vibe for the bedroom.
That was
if you're like date night, put on the Mavs City, Alexa.
Yeah.
Like that's weird.
Barry Gay, nah. Maverick City, yes.
I think that was Chris Tomlin.
Chris
I need some
Tomlin?
Chris Tomlin.
You're the god of the
Man.
city. You're the god of this bedroom. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's,
Whatever it was for them. But anyway, sorry, I derailed there.
No, you're fine. That's quite the image.
So
that-
Steve gets up and starts his sermon, and he's like, extra excited, like he probably just said one of those naughty
Said
jokes.
something
I mean,
inappropriate.
yeah, it's not. Well, anyway.
No, man,
Let's
it's cool.
flirt.
No, you
Keep
should.
flirting.
You should
Keep
keep
flirting.
flirting. I think there, you go through seasons where one of the two doesn't feel like they're particularly attractive or whatever, and I think that can really help marriages stand strong against those seasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should stay flirty. You should stay inappropriate and all that stuff. Who else are you going to do it with? It's your spouse, right?
If you do anything else, you're going to be in trouble, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one that piggybacking off of yours was just wanting the best for your spouse as opposed to for yourself. It kind of goes hand in hand with trying to outserve each other, but not making decisions based off of what is most comfortable for you, but what you think will be the best for your family as a whole, but also for your spouse. I think is good marriage advice. Less so maybe if you're super newly married because you're still trying to figure that stuff out.
Right.
But later in life, that stuff becomes important.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's
cool
good.
guys.
You're right.
You
Good
landed.
talk.
You landed it.
You know what? It came in.
Yeah.
A little turbulence.
Veer a little right,
Yeah.
and then we touched down.
Yep.
We'll get. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the In All Things podcast. If you have things that you think should be present in every single marriage, you can drop those down in the comments. If you have topics that you'd like us to cover, you can drop those down in the comments as well. Please if you're watching on YouTube, it helps the algorithm. Share this with a friend that maybe you think needs to hear it. And we will see you in the next In All Things podcast. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamore.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.